Number 2, a function is defined as shown. There's the function. Part A, it says if the domain is restricted to 2, infinity, what equation represents f negative 1 of x? First question I have for you here. Let me go large screen so you can see a little better. First question I have for you has to do with this symbol f negative 1 of x. Mathematically, what's the math vocab term that describes that symbol right there? Inverse, inverse. Thank you. It's inverse. Oh, and practically, what does that mean to have an inverse? Switch the x to y. All right, perfect. So in this equation, I see x's. So the x's are going to become what letter? A y. Do you see a y right now?
No.
So I won't switch anything there, but every x will become a y. Okay, this will get you close, but it doesn't describe everything. There's another mathematical word up on the board that I have not done much with. What's the other mathematical word that's going to really matter? Restricted. Yeah, specifically it says restricted domain, which domain usually means x's, but we're switching x and y. So we're actually going to restrict y. So if we start with the x and then you do the inverse, what does the x become? Y. Okay. The math symbol for restricted. Any of y'all remember off the top of your head? What was it?
Oh, it's the squiggly.
Squiggly bracket. That's how you're gonna, whether it's piecewise or restricting pieces and that, or here, you're gonna use the squiggly bracket. Okay, so the numbers we're gonna include are 2. Oops, not a comma. Desmos doesn't do commas typically. Let's erase that. 2. And now remember earlier when we looked at when we changed the graph on the bell ringer, I said the inequalities went which way on Desmos? Which way? They go to the left or the right?
Right.
To the left.
Oh wait.
Excuse me. You're right.
I'm right.
You're right. I'm pointing left. I got to do backwards with my brain. Yeah, they open to the right. They open to the right. So we're going to have these symbols. And what do you replace infinity with? 1,000. Great. We're going to put that there. So now it's just which letter are we restricting? And we're restricting y. Another way of remembering you're restricting y is y's are all we have written across this equation. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. You're going to graph this, what I have written out. How many lines on Desmos should that take up? 1 line or 2 lines? 1. You're going to type it in 1 line, and I'll give you a graph. And then I want you to type in the answer choices to see which one overlaps. All right, so go ahead. I'm going to walk the room while you try that. Okay, one thing, just to be precise, it won't matter for multiple choice. You'll be able to find your answers, but just to be precise, when you have a bracket next to the 2 there, if you were looking at a picture that showed you an open circle versus a closed circle, if you have a bracket, does that mean it's a closed dot or open dot? Closed. So what that would mean, if you wanted to be really precise, you would technically need a line under that 2, because that means it can be equal to 2, so I need to include it there. Can I be equal to infinity? No, and so that would be a less than. Okay, so there's that first part I wanted to hit right there that I forgot a second ago. Now, when you graph them, you're looking for the graph that perfectly overlaps. A question I've had come up quite frequently. Can I get your eyes again? Question I've had is, what about the answer choices? Do I change the x's to the y's here?
No.
Answer is no, because what we've done when we've typed it into Desmos like this is we're letting Desmos do the algebra for us. The test, this is as if we did the algebra way. So that you don't change. You leave those equations as is, and you see which one overlaps. So I graphed them on my end. Let me show you the pictures. So let me press equals here. So all that did is it changed that to a closed dot instead of open dot. But other than that, the picture is the same. So here are my 4 answer choices. We're going to see which one overlaps. What do y'all think about A? Does A look good or bad? A looks pretty good. What about B? No, that would be the opposite side. That's not what we want. What about C? No, doesn't overlap. What about D? No, that's not it. So the correct answer was A. It perfectly overlaps. So now that we've done part A, let's reload and do this all over again. Part B. This says, did you have a question on that? Okay. This says the function is shown, still same function. If the domain is restricted to negative infinity comma 2, which graph represents f negative 1? Okay, one more time. What does this symbol right there mean? That means inverse. And so, sorry, there we go. That means inverse. And practically, how do you solve for an inverse using the calculator? You switch x's to y's and y's to x's. So I should be typing in fy equals 3y minus 2 squared plus 4, which is the same equation we just had. But something is different. What's different here?
It's the restriction.
The restriction has changed. We are no longer, so I'm restricting, that's the squiggly bracket. I'm no longer going 2 to infinity, I'm now going negative infinity into 2. So what are we going to type in instead of negative infinity?
1,000.
Negative 1,000. And again, if you struggle on what direction do I put my inequalities, press the wrench and look, which way do they open? Do these open to the left or the right? They open to the right. So that's the direction you're going to use. Again, it won't really matter for you selecting the correct answer, but technically this would be a less than because it's not equal to y. And the next one technically would be equals to. If you type it in like that, you should get exactly one of those 4 answer choices. So that's what you're typing in. And when you do so, you should get one of these 4 answer choices. Okay, now let's take a look at the DOL for this problem. So I'm going to now change up the problem and I want you to solve this DOL. I will make one adjustment to this equation here. It says which graph represents the inverse of the function. I'm going to change this. What if the problem said this? Y equals 5 over square root of x minus 2. I want you to find the inverse if I wrote it this way. What did I change from here to here?
The y's.
I've changed
you
f
changed
of
the
x
y.
to a y.
Yeah.
And I want you to use this equation to go through the process of finding your inverse. Again, how do you find an inverse? Switch x's to y's and y's to x's. I want you to be changing this one right here.
So
And I'll leave up your multiple choice so you can see them. Which answer choice will be correct? DOL number 3.